Second time's the charm. Let's see what we can do here. Invite someone to join. Wife is back in here. Can you still hear me? Hopefully you can still hear me. I want to try this wave function since nobody else is here. I waved. Nice. That's fun. We'll give it a couple minutes here. Get started. I have a guest joining us today. You can't hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Because my wife's saying she can't hear me.
Oh, well, when my mom gets logged in here, she'll let us know.
Here, I'm going to turn my
Yeah.
mic off. I'll just do it without the mic.
Okay.
See what happens. What's going on, Rachel?
Sorry I'm late. I opened my drink and I'd been sitting on the counter all morning, but it exploded all over me for some reason. So,
Wait, your drink exploded?
yeah, like as though I had just been shaking it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means to start the day, but
I
how are
think,
you?
it just means we're about to have an explosive conversation. I think that's what's about to
Hey,
happen.
we like to call it a reframe, huh? That's pretty good.
See, you have the actual expertise. I just make shit up and then hope that no one questions me.
I think that is what being on the internet is. So, you get to say and do whatever you want. So,
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. There's no one here to fact check
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
And if they are, I'll tell them they're liars. Apparently, that flies in the world
And that's
now.
oh, okay, yeah.
No,
So,
I'm
well, we
kidding.
believe that one. So, how's it going
No,
over there?
it's going all right. It's going all right. How are you? You've been traveling. You've been moving around.
Yeah, I have. And first, I woke up this morning. I have this weird swollen lazy eye happening. So I feel like don't know if you can see it through the sunglasses. I was trying to hide it, but otherwise good. It's good over here. Yeah, I'm actually I can't remember if I told you this, but I'm in a place like a state of life right now where I'm trying to figure out do I stay or do I go? And it is if you're kind of open to I don't even mean in a religious way or even a super spiritual way, but if you're sort of open to kind of signs or intuition or whatever. I'm like, oh, everything is screaming really loud at me right now from two different directions. So yeah, so I don't know if my travel is donezo or if we're just getting started again.
Well, let's
So it
take a
goes.
let's take a step back for a second. So, for
Yeah.
those watching, the whole two of you, and I think it's just friends of ours probably,
Mm. Hey guys. Yeah.
but whoever watches the recording later, for those who don't know, so this is actually Rachel and I's first time talking like this. We have
Mm.
conversed via Instagram message 1,000 times because we share
Yeah.
a common philosophy and thought process around mental health, but we've never actually spoken person to person yet.
I feel like we
And so you're getting
have.
this.
I feel like this is very comfortable. Yeah.
No, it is like 100% because
Totally.
I think you and I both are just kindred spirits in that way. Where
Yeah.
we're gonna be out there, we're gonna put ourselves out there. So when I asked you to do this, you were like, "Of course, I'm in."
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, so since I know at least one of my friends on here who has no idea who you are, you want to introduce
Oh,
yourself?
hey, friend. So my name's Rachel. I am a licensed clinical social worker, which means, well, it can mean a lot of things, but for me, it means I do mental health therapy. And I'm really, really big on like including your basic needs as part of that, which is why I created Back to Basics as my Instagram account back in 2020 when, you know, shit hit the fan. I was just like, I feel like in every session I was talking to patients, like, well, you got to get back to your basics, right? Like, are you sleeping? Are you eating? And so it just between that and then seeing how mental health is so connected to like hormone imbalances and nutrient deficiencies and all that fun stuff, this was born. So I'm really kind of a like to do therapy from a holistic standpoint when applicable.
No, I think you touched on a really interesting point, and we'll get to something else. We have a theme here for both of us
Mm-hmm.
here in a second. We're gonna get there in a
Yeah.
second, folks. But
Yeah.
I want to pull on that thread a bit because you said, getting back to the basics. I think a lot, especially nowadays, mental health has become more in conversation than probably it ever has in the history of the world, right?
Yeah.
Which is great from a just feeling seen and feeling heard and understood. The caveat there, though, is like everyone wants to jump into like medication or just really intensive therapy and things along those lines. And while those have a lot of benefits, and this is why I want to talk to someone like you who actually has real expertise, I'm just more on the anecdotal side.
Mm.
But to me, like, there is something really, really important about getting to, as you said, back to the basics. Something as simple as getting exercise, eating
Yeah.
healthy, managing
Yeah.
your finances. You do a handful of those things, you're going to take a lot of the stress out of your life. You're going to take a lot of
Absolutely.
the physical pain you might feel. And then, so with that, that directly impacts your mental health. So, how do you, as a counselor, kind of find that balance of, oh, I think this person's most of their stress is triggered by the fact that they don't know how to maintain a budget.
Mm. That's a really actually it's funny that you're saying that right now. I think that's a really good example. And I think I saw on here, oh, I can't remember somebody I follow, they had posted something about like financial financial health is mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, 100%. So if I'm working with somebody who if financial stress just keeps coming up, you know, I guess sort of generally speaking, I could try to look with them to see, okay, what do you have control over, right? Like what can you do to feel more empowered around that? Um, if it's, I mean, I guess basically, if you're spending money on like bar hopping and going to movies and stuff like that, then we kind of look to see, okay, is there what social need or like um joy is not being like fulfilled, like what could you how could you get those things from doing things that are a little cheaper to save money that way, right? Sometimes it really is kind of with love, like hand holding, okay, bring your budget and we're going to walk through like how you can make this look a little differently. Sorry, did I feel like I went
No,
off there, but did I
you're
kind of
fine.
answer your question?
No, I mean it does. I mean I think that they tie into it because I think whether you intended to or not, you touched on a really interesting point because there's this growing philosophy of you hear the millennials and younger generation being like, sorry, I like my avocado toast and my $5
Yes.
latte,
Yes.
right? And they're like, that's not going to save the fact that I'm in drowning student loan debt or being able to afford a home or something along those
Yeah.
lines. And there's that argument being had, and it's totally fair and understood. Having said that, you know, if you did manage to go from a $5 latte every single day down to 50 cents making it a home, while it
Mm,
may not be enough for you to buy a home, your life could get helped by that savings in a different place. But where tying it back to what you said, I think it's a
yeah.
really interesting point that there's also something outside of the financial, there's a joy that maybe someone gets. Like you mentioned going to the movies.
Yeah.
If that's a social interaction thing that you have, because maybe it's not bar hopping for them. Maybe
Right.
it's I go to the movies with my friends multiple times a week because that's our way of
Right.
socializing, being together. And while they might be able to save money if they didn't do that, at what cost? Because they
Y-
might deteriorate the social environment that they have. So how do you
Yeah.
manage those two things?
Yeah. You, gosh, your questions are so good. It's, made me think two things. One is being intentional, and two is the idea of like choosing the bigger life. So if it is the avocado toast or your latte or whatever, right? Maybe it's just being more intentional with when and how you do that. So like if your routine is get up, go to Starbucks or a local coffee shop, and then drive to work or whatever, right? Like, okay, what if you were more intentional with that time? Like, what if you did make your coffee at home, maybe 3 days a week, and on your fun Friday, that was coffee day, right? Like that feels, even if you're not making this huge impact on your savings by making some changes, you still feel like you're doing something actionable. And so that is going to always make you feel better. And then being intentional with it, it's like, oh, today's latte day or whatever.
You get joy out
I just,
of that too. It's like it's something
you
to
get,
look forward to in your week.
yeah, yeah. And if like, I think it was maybe the Happiness Project that was talking about the idea of like choosing the bigger life. So um, maybe the example they gave was like, should you get a dog or should you not get a dog, right? Like for this person over here, getting a dog could be choosing the bigger life because they want to meet people. They want to get more movement. They have a stable home and like, kind of a pretty predictable routine that adding a dog could bring so much joy. For me, it would not be choosing the bigger life right now because I'm traveling so
Right.
much. And so the expense that would come with that, you know what I mean? So if choosing the bigger life would be going to the movies, then I just went to the movie. I took myself to the movies the other day. You don't have to like, you don't pick what time you go, right? Like I know it's God, the older you get, the cooler it is to go on a Saturday morning, but I know that's not for everybody. But the matinee prices are cheaper. If you're
No,
gonna
it
go with
is.
friends, you
What-
could just like buy the movie or rent the movie online or whatever and just like have a movie party at home. So it does save money a little bit that way. Yeah.
No, you make a really compelling point. Like that's my wife and I.
Mm.
We love going to the movies. That's why I like that example. We love going to the movies, but virtually the only way we go is on Tuesdays at AMC because it's $5 any movie.
$5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$5 any movie, new release, old, doesn't matter. All
Yeah.
day long too. It doesn't you don't have to go at a special time or anything. So that's pretty much our like go-to Tuesday thing
That's cool.
because it's cheaper. The exception we'll make is like like we're both big Marvel fans,
Oh
so
yeah.
we don't want to see spoilers. So we might go see that on opening night. That might be a
Fair.
splurge. But generally speaking, like we just saw Speak No Evil this week.
Oh.
Great movie, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing about saving the money too, if like getting a cheaper price on it, is like if the movie ends up not being all that great, which that movie was. I'm not saying it was.
Oh,
I'm just
I'm
using
gonna
it
go
as an
see it too,
example.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the movie ends up not being super great, then you don't feel like you wasted a whole bunch of money. You dropped
Yeah.
$15 per ticket to go to a matinee or
Yeah.
to an evening show,
Oh, I
and then the
know.
movie was subpar. I get that way about concerts
That's
too, by the way. Like
fair.
if it's like
That's a
over a
fair
certain dollar
point.
amount.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I agree with that. Mine used to be like if it was over $25, I wasn't going, but now concerts are so expensive.
Concerts are so expensive. You can still find some deals. Something we do, we adopted a very specific like rule when it came to concerts.
Mm,
We both love them. We both have been to a lot, but we realized like we love traveling more and we love doing
yeah,
other things. We still want to go to concerts.
yeah,
So both of us are allowed to at once a year. You're allowed to say, "Hey, this is the hill I care to die on."
yeah. Oh, I like
For
that.
for her, it was we were already in Europe and we saw Taylor Swift. And so
Nice.
we were already gonna be in Edinburgh, and it worked out well in timing. And so we went. And she's like, "This is my hill I care to die on." For me, it
That's
was
awesome.
seeing Zach Bryan because
Okay.
he was
Yeah.
touring with Jason Isbell down here. So I was
Oh,
like, "That's two
yes.
concerts I love. Like I would pay good money to see both of them." And so
I
those are our
mean,
hills to die
that,
on.
that is a 2 for 1. Yeah.
She's in the comments like, "Yep, she
Yeah.
loved it." Like it's, but that's our policy. It's like, is this a hill you care to die on? If
Yeah.
it is, or another one for me, not a concert, was I'm a big Green Bay Packers
Oh.
fan, and it was Aaron Rodgers facing Tom Brady for the last time, and it was here in
Uh,
Tampa. And tickets
yeah.
were a bit more than we would normally spend on like an
Yeah.
NFL game live. But I was
Yeah.
like, honey, this matters to me. Now, am I
I
going to
mean,
spend
those,
$1,000 a ticket? No, I'm not. But
but it
so
is choosing the bigger life and it is being more intentional with those choices because it's that investment piece, like kind of the emotional investment piece. That it's like, I really want to do this. So I'm going to plan for it and I'm going to, maybe I don't get that latte or maybe I don't go to the movie that week, right? To just like plan and plot that connection to the experience so much more,
yeah.
which is good for mental health.
Well, talk about experiences. I might use that as a segue
Yeah.
into the topic that I really wanted to touch on you with. So,
Yeah.
for the two people that are watching this, but the nice thing is it'll get uploaded later.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still building this, so we'll
No,
see how it plays out.
same. For some reason, I don't, well, I feel like in the recent weeks, all my views, I'm only getting like 100 views on things, and I was getting a couple thousand before. And so I don't know yeah, I'm like, I feel like not in the scene right now
I
myself. So,
I took a very simple philosophy a long time ago, which is that like I do this stuff because it matters to me,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
what success or anything comes out of it is secondary to the fact that like this is important to me for maintaining my soul.
Yeah. No, when it's that idea too, right? Like if you help one person,
Yeah,
if like one person needs the resource, I mean, that really does make it worth it.
it does.
Yeah.
All right. So, for those who are watching or who will watch this later, you notice that we're both partaking in a particular beverage of sorts. And something you may not know about Rachel is that she's actually a licensed. What's the correct credentialing for?
Oh, thanks. It is a CAADC, so it's a Certified Advanced Alcohol and Drug Counselor. I Yeah, license. I took the board exam, so I get to do that, and then the LCSW stuff.
Yeah. So, um, I think a simple way to say it is like you are an expert of sorts in terms of substance abuse and
Yeah.
alcohol abuse and things along those lines. And something you and I have talked about 1,000 times in messages about there's this growing movement of the sober curious population,
Hmm.
especially in today's time where people are more health conscious,
Hmm.
people care more about what are they putting in their body and taking out of their body and things along those lines. And so before I step on any toes here, not for you, but
Yeah.
for anybody that would watch this, if you are struggling with addiction, if you are doing it, if you are experiencing depression due to any sort of substance abuse, like my first and foremost recommendation would be get help.
Yeah.
Like I want to make that abundantly clear before we go any further in this
Yeah.
conversation because we're gonna go a different way than most people are maybe going on social media, and that's okay. But it's all under the disclaimer of if you have a problem, like, I want you to get that help.
Yeah.
I think you would agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 1,000%. And I think I will just kind of clarify a little bit more even on that if you think that you have a problem, then explore that, because I think over the years seeing patients, in order to, for alcohol, we'll say, since that's what we're going to talk about, there's not a amount that you have to use in order to meet criteria, right? So I have seen people who are coming to get help because they're taking 12 or 18 shots a day. Where I also had a patient who was coming to see me because they were drinking one bottle of wine per week, which somebody over here may say, well, that's silly.
There are
That's no
people that do
problem.
that a day.
Yeah, it was a huge problem for her. She was exploding her life every time she did it. And so, yeah, so to your point, if you think that you may have a problem, go talk to somebody and get the resources, get connected to what you need.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because it's relative, right? Like, so
It's absolutely.
it's an example I've used in my life is my dad. My
Mm.
dad doesn't really drink anymore. When he was younger,
So,
probably, but from what I understand, but anymore today, not
mhm.
really, not very often. Um, he doesn't really partake in that, and so about a little over a year ago, his mom died. So my grandmother, and
Yeah.
and if all of a sudden this guy who I know doesn't really drink decided to have a drink around that time, one beer, hey, whatever,
Yeah.
maybe just had one, but if I saw it even like a couple times though, even if it was just like one drink, it's like that might be worth reflecting
Yeah.
on in itself. Like, why were you good all this other time without it, and now in this moment
Yeah.
when you're going through a dark period, are you leaning into it?
Yeah.
Versus someone like me who, it's no secret to anybody who knows me, I partake in alcohol, but I, even for that, like I try to always have like rules about it and like think ways that I can feel better about what I'm doing, but it's always worth questioning, it's always
Yeah.
worth examining and saying,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to necessarily be addiction. It can also just be maybe you're like me, I'm trying to lose a little weight,
Mm.
and and I know that that's a contributing factor. It's empty calories. It's all
Right.
these things. So I'm just
Right.
trying to place some rules in place to say, hey, like we're not going to consume the way we used to,
Hmm.
because that's working against other goals we have for choosing the. You said what's the phrasing? Choosing the greater life,
Oh, choosing the bigger life. But also,
bigger life.
all I'm hearing you say too is like, oh, you're being very intentional, right? Like, and
I
that's
was that was
again,
actually That was a New Year's resolution I had like 2 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
when I think about New Year's resolutions, like I'm not big on being like this thing is going to happen this day.
Hmm.
I try to think of it more of like a systemic infrastructure perspective where it's like this line is going to go into all decision making
Oh,
that I do. So
I
that
love that.
yeah, it's like how can I be more intentional about everything that I do, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's having conversations with people or something along those lines. So like that became a part of a philosophy of my life is let's be intentional about everything we're putting ourselves into.
I'm gonna check in with you in December because I really, really like that, and I like it. I'm really kind of big on like creating SMART goals,
Yeah,
and so I was curious, like, oh, how could you turn that into like, the specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time
I have
oriented?
some personal conflicts with that framework.
Yeah, fair.
Um, I just because I do think some goals can be hard to have a measurable by, and then
Yes.
because people
Yeah.
it's not measurable, people won't go after it. And I think for me, so as a perfect example,
Yeah.
um, I mentioned like I'm kind of on a bit of a weight loss journey of sorts.
Yeah.
I remember like after like my freshman year of college, I had gained like a ton of weight, like a lot of people do,
Mm-hmm.
and I came home and I saw a few pictures of me that were posted. I was like, God, I am fat. And it was not, it's not the way you should be
Right.
talking to yourself, but that's the reality. That's what I was
Right.
in. And
Yeah.
then that summer, I was like psychotic about it. I was like, I'm going to eat chicken. I worked at Red Robin and I was eating like grilled chicken and vegetables
Wow.
only and running every day and up and moving
Okay.
all day. And I lost like 35 pounds and it was great. I felt so accomplished
Hmm.
and so moved by that. But then I didn't really build good habits. I just was a
Hmm.
maniac
Yeah.
and decided I was gonna get this goal no matter what.
Yeah.
Because if you give me a target, I will
That's
hit it.
actually,
But
that's
it's
good to
just
go.
not that's not a good way to live and exist in the world. And of course, naturally, I fall back into habit. So this go around, I've instead of saying, "Hey, I'm going to lose this amount of weight by this time," it's I'm going to just make better decisions across the
That
board. I'm going to exercise most days a
yes.
week. I'm gonna 80% of the time eat lean meat and vegetables. The 20% of the time that I don't eat well, I'm still gonna try to make better decisions. Like if I
I,
go to a wing
I love
place,
it.
I'll do dry
Yeah.
rub over
Yeah.
sauce.
Yeah. I mean that I know I agree. Like I think I'm glad you're talking about it like that too, because I when I think about SMART goals, mostly I get real hung up on the specific part, like how. But it's
Yeah,
even you talking about I want to be more intentional. For somebody that's like, okay,
so
cool.
broad.
What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah, and so you saying, okay, I'm gonna use that as kind of my guide for when I'm making decisions and like as a checkpoint. That is specific enough. I think that's really awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it is specific enough. Maybe I'm just the wrong one then.
To me, I count it as maybe the business people in the smart goal world
I
wouldn't,
made
but
a
yeah,
joke about it in my book.
oh
It's actually one of my favorite chapters that I wrote.
yeah,
It was about this. It's like smart goals, KPIs, all that stuff, all breaking everyone down to a measurement point. And understandably so, we want to
mm,
use a rating scale, but keep in mind that some things are subjective. And
true,
so, how do we have
absolutely,
that conversation?
yeah, yeah, man, I totally agree with you.
So, then from bringing it back to like the alcohol part of
Yeah.
the conversation, then, so how do you, as somebody who is, certified in being able to handle and treat these things, but also someone who enjoys partaking, how do you personally manage that?
Oh, it's a good question. If you know me on here, you'll know I've had my ups and downs. I think the thing that's been the most important piece is learning, like learning the effects of alcohol. And so how I mean that different than probably what everyone just thought of initially, right? Is that how it impacts nutrient deficient. I mean, sorry, I'm always going to go back to that because it's really like for me, it's such a foundation. Like, how does alcohol use affect nutrient deficiency? How is it going to affect my hormones? How is it going to affect sleep? So, really, I mean, the older I get, the more I have to really use those as guides because I'll be honest, yesterday it was college football day. There was the big tailgate happening in town. It was, a whole thing. And so it was kind of a choice like, all right, I can drink and kind of eat like shit. And I know that I
It's
know
going
I'm
to
going to wake
cost
up at
you.
3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I know I'm going to pay for it because I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night because my blood sugar is going to tank and I'm going to not be able to go back to sleep for a few hours. And is it worth it? Is it worth it today? No, it never is worth it the next day. But is it worth it in the moment? Like, yeah, no, that sounds really fun. I like to be with the people. So yeah, I know that's, I don't know, maybe that's not the best answer, but I think
An honest
alongside
one.
that, yeah, and just kind of like I didn't know I didn't know that back in the day. Like I didn't know that was a thing. And so you wake up at 3 in the morning, you're like heart is pounding, you're like, oh my God, I'm having an anxiety attack. I have such bad mental health. You really spiral, but it's like, no, that's not what's going on. Your blood sugar is just low and it's because you were a dummy yesterday. Like you're fine basically. Um so yeah, and then if I am gonna drink, not I don't do this always, but I try to keep in mind like how can I support my system in metabolizing the alcohol? So prioritizing food that's high in protein, healthy fat, fiber, just to help to I was gonna say minimize. I don't know how much it minimizes the effects, but at least like it helps my body stay a little bit more balanced during the fun, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, how do you tend to like do it for yourself? I mean, I guess it goes back to being intentional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it in terms of like, because it's changed over the course of my life.
Yeah.
Something that I've always been hyper aware of is I, regardless of where I'm at in terms of like health and wellness from that perspective,
Yeah.
I have always personally taken the route of drinking because I enjoy drinking, not
Mm,
because I need it for a purpose.
totally.
Right. So
Yeah, I love that.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, because like as a perfect example, so if anyone's been following my content for a period of time, you know that I was dating a woman for about a year and she died unexpectedly.
Mm,
And at the time, I was selling beer for a living. I was a craft beer sales rep. I went around drinking was part of my life. It just that's the way it is. And even while doing that, I didn't drink for like a month because I was like, I know where this path goes.
yeah.
I know I have control over it, but I'm gonna do this and it's going to feel good in this exact moment right here, but it won't feel good long term and it will
Yeah.
become my crutch of not dealing with what's going on in my mind. And so I think that's where you bring it back to the intentionality piece. I think that's always been like I've been seeing some recent clips and stuff of people talking about they drink mostly because they have social anxiety,
Oh, right.
right? And so
Right.
for them, there's that part of it too. And like even that, I would be like, that's a little terrifying to me. If like you can't be around people without
Yeah.
feeling the need to consume alcohol. Like I'm a social person with or without this. That doesn't
Same.
matter. Do I tend to drink when I'm with people? Yeah,
Yeah.
but I, I'm I can do without that and still enjoy being around people. Like that's where I get my energy and my power from
Yeah.
that. So I sympathize with people who have a hard time in social game just so this gives them that like mask off ability.
Yeah. It
But
reinforces that like sorry to interrupt
no, it's
it, but it
okay.
reinforces that piece of like it makes you I am a person who has social anxiety excuse me versus I am a person who is trying to be less socially anxious, you know what I mean? It like
Right.
puts you in that box. And so all that does then is continue to like if you were a patient of mine and you told me that even if you weren't really having an alcohol use issue, right, it was just kind of like I might have 2 drinks when I go out because I feel nervous, right? Let's challenge that because all you're doing now is like telling your brain that you need it when
Mm-hmm.
really, you know, you might you might not. It might be uncomfortable, but you might not need it.
Right. No, it makes it easier. I mean, like,
Totally.
and something, whether you're talking about alcohol or drugs or changes you make in your lifestyle or anything along those lines, something I've become very, very aware of as I've gotten older is everything has a cost.
Oh, yeah.
Everything, every decision you make has a cost. The question you have to always ask yourself is, what cost can I live with the most?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and if you're okay with that, so bringing it back to alcohol for a second, something my friends hate me for to this day is that like I really don't get hangovers. hangovers. Not really.
Oh,
Um,
God, that's impressive.
yeah, I'm 33 years old, and I mean, it usually takes the perfect storm for me to get a
Mm,
hangover. It's got to be like less than 6 hours of sleep, mixing different types of alcohol, not eating a whole lot. Like that is usually what's going to take. Now, as I've gotten older, like a couple weeks ago, like my stomach was a little
yeah.
messed up the next day, but like outside of that, like the whole like awful headache and loud noise, no, none of that. I
Wow.
never been a part of my. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's
Um,
lucky.
so that's what I mean. So like when people tell me about like these awful hangovers, I'm like, if I had that, I wouldn't drink nearly as
Yeah,
often as I do because
yeah,
that has a cost that they have to pay. I don't
yeah.
have that cost,
It's
so
funny.
I don't have that repercussion, which is good and bad.
I mean, right. Sorry, I feel like I'm having to. The sun keeps chasing me. Um, I'm gonna
Are
move
you
one
under
more
like a
time.
gazebo type
Kind
thing?
of, yeah. So I'm actually at an Airbnb right now. I think I told you I was in a car wreck.
Right.
And so the long story short, I'm sort of got stuck. I got stuck back in Idaho, but yeah, so I'm at an Airbnb right now. But yeah, it's a cute little gazebo. Um, sorry, yeah, to distract. I'll probably have to move one more time.
No, it's
But
okay.
uh, yeah, I think like you know the other funny and stupid thing the brain does is to your point about the hangovers, like you wake up the next morning and if you are feeling a hangover like that, you're like, oh my God, I'm never drinking again. This is the worst. And some people some people don't. Some people remember that and then they like are they remember it every time they are offered alcohol and they may not drink or they maybe will drink a little. The rest of us, it takes a few days and we're like, what was that?
We're fine.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we literally can't connect to that person anymore. We have no idea how that felt. Um so yeah, I don't know, it can make it a little bit trickier too.
But it's like, but to me, it goes back to like, yeah, every single decision has a cost,
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
and like I'll use a different example. This is something my wife and I have talked about a number of times. We're at some point in the future, in case my mom's watching this right now, never beating the orange juice allegations. By the way, this is a screwdriver because we're talking about
Oh,
alcohol.
yeah.
I should have probably brought that up earlier. We're talking about alcohol on this, and we both agree we're going to have a cocktail while we do
Yes.
this.
Cheers to you.
So
Yeah.
cheers. Um,
Oh, sorry, I faux pas there and drink before the toast. Uh,
okay, what are you having?
um, so kind of to your question earlier, over the years, so I am 42 and a half. I no longer can I can't drink an IPA. I can't I just can't drink certain things anymore because my body red wine out of the question. Like I just can't. So
Don't jinx
I
it.
yeah, yeah, you'll be fine. Um so I either have to drink I mean I still drink whatever, but generally if I'm choosing, I will drink like a seltzer or this is a ranch water, so
Okay.
tequila soda water. I know that there's lots of people do that for the calorie purposes, but I'm like, oh no, my I just don't feel like shit afterwards. So
That's me. Part of I think my like some of it's genetic. Some of it's
yeah,
just like what something about me is favorable in that
yeah,
regard. Um, but also for me, it's what I choose to drink too. Like 98% of the time you see me drinking, it will be just straight bourbon. There's no,
yeah.
I don't do
Oh,
old fashioned.
I'm a
I
bourbon
will,
girl
if
too.
someone's like legendary for an old fashioned, I will try one.
Mm,
But other than that, I don't mix. I'm bourbon or I'm beer 90% of the time.
yeah,
Since it's the morning, I decided a
you
screwdriver would be
know,
fun.
I
Um, but I really
man,
don't mix. I don't do like the sweet stuff. I stay
yeah,
away from a lot of the sugary things. I
yeah.
don't want to overcomplicate a drink. I just want to have bourbon on the rocks. And it became actually where I got really into it was in corporate America, like going out for happy hour or having drinks with coworkers. Just I was just in San Francisco 2 weeks
Oh,
ago with my company,
that's right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and so we were out there and we were going to a game and we'll all drink there, and that was my way of like keeping myself in check. Was
Oh,
like, 'cause if I get beer, I can slug
yeah,
that and it won't
yeah.
be a problem, especially if it's like a Miller Lite or something. Like that's
Hmm.
easy. That's water
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
So I would get like bourbon on the rocks, and I would just sip and
Gosh,
watch the
that's
mayhem. consume. Um,
Man, I like I have a friend who like years ago, I guess, taught me the idea of like she's a big vodka soda girl, so
okay.
she will do vodka soda tall, like so right in a tall glass versus like
Mhm.
short glass. So then you can, God, because in short glass, right, it just like gone in 2 seconds, but the
Mhm.
tall gives you some time to like just chill, just chill out for a minute. So yeah, no, I like those pacer drinks, you know?
Yeah, it's something that now. What's the funny though is I've been doing that for years, and now bourbon's almost just as easy for me. So now
God,
I
no,
have
I
to find a different
love
solution.
bourbon.
It's got to be more intentional
Yeah,
in my part to like slow down.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's So anyway, earlier I was going to go to a different point here. This is,
yeah.
by the way, this is the fun part to me about the live aspect of this, because I want this to be unedited. I don't want us
Yeah,
to have all the first. Don't get me wrong. I love a good podcast, but there's something that's kind of funny about like the whole editing process of that. You can stop and start. This is way more fun for
I
me.
love it.
Um, so, but what I was going to say earlier about like a different example of like the everything has a cost philosophy
Yes.
that I have. So I think about it in
Yeah.
terms of being a parent.
Hmm.
So like I said,
Oh,
my wife
right.
and I,
Yes.
my wife and I, it's on the roadmap at some point in time. We don't know yet. We're still figuring that out, but
Yes.
we
Yeah.
talk a lot
Oh,
about parenting philosophies. And something I think about a lot is like in today's time, we have more access to information. We have
mm,
all these resources at our fingertips. And so our natural instinct as a parent is because we now know these things live out there,
yeah.
how do we create walls to protect our kids? Completely understand that perspective. I get it. Your job as a parent, number one, is to protect your child.
Yeah.
But what I think people forget sometimes is like everything has a cost. So by your plan to homeschool your kid,
Right.
or your plan to be very strict about who and when they hang out with people, or when they can get a cell phone, or can they have access to certain apps.
Oh, true.
Again, I get it. Put the walls up, protect them. But my challenge is there: one, you show me a 10-foot wall, I'll show you an 11-foot ladder. Second problem is like there's a ramification of your kid being like left out, essentially.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
and maybe as a parent you're like, hey, I can live with that because they're safe. I'm okay with that, but you should be aware that everything has a
Yeah.
cost. Vice versa, you let your kid be on everything, do everything. Yes, on the flip side, you open them up to a number of risks. It's hard to be in a school shooting when your kid's homeschooled.
Uh, yeah. God. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
everything has a cost, but you have to be aware of those decisions. As you know, like I started a new job
yes.
about a month and a half, 2 months
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
and I've been in my last company for 5.5 years, and I really loved everyone there. And along the way, working there, I had opportunities to potentially leave, and my decision-making process was always very simple: what will I regret more in 6 months? Not
Mm,
trying this or not staying here. I'm going to regret them both for different reasons, but what can I live with more? What can I sleep better at night with? And
man.
me switching to this role that I'm in now was
Yeah.
the first time in 5.5 years where I went, no, if I don't take this opportunity, I'm going to regret this. Like, this is going to keep me up at night for months on end. And so I always, that's my guiding force. So I think you're learning about me is like everything starts with a very simple handful of like beliefs that I have inside of me, and I'll use that to guide me on all decisions. And
It's
by the way, for those
really
listening,
impressive.
I'm not fucking perfect, I promise you.
But it's
I have
really
made a
impressive.
million mistakes. Ask my parents.
It- but that like that slowing down piece, right? Like the just giving yourself enough of that pause to be able to check in and like even consider like your intention or whatever, it's you must have been doing that for a really long time because that is a muscle that has to be built. That I mean, I know, right? Like that probably doesn't happen every single choice you have to make, but the consistency is probably, if you looked at those stats, that's probably pretty impressive. Good for you. I feel very inspired, and also I appreciate you. Yeah, you know how I said like I'm like maybe being hypersensitive to like, is this a sign? Is this a sign? But you talking about like, what will I regret in 6 months? I'm going to have to marinate on that a little bit as I'm trying to think about what I'm doing next with my life in terms of travel stuff. So
Oh, but
yeah, thanks for sharing that.
No, I
That's a good
appreciate
point.
that. But it's true. Like it's just, yeah, again, whether you intended to or not, like you pulled on another thread that I think is worth having a conversation about, which is that like panic leads to really faulty decision making
Mm-hmm.
because we get into a moment where we're like, okay, we're now I'm that's this is the thing that makes me the most alien of most people. That's where I thrive.
Oh, and panic. Oh, nice.
Give me the panic. Give me the uncertainty. Give me the chaos. My therapist and I, we call it my chaos, like organized chaos. Like
Mm-hmm.
give me the chaos because that's when I
That's what
thrive.
you
If I'm
do.
too much at peace, that's when I fall apart. I don't know how to
Mm,
handle some. I don't. I want the rough
yeah.
waters. In my job, I'm a client facing person. That's what I do for a living. That's what I've done for 10 plus years. I want the problem account. I want the one that nobody wants because I know
Oh,
how to get in there and fight.
that's
You give
cool.
me a customer who's like happy and like enjoys the product. That should be like the easy one. That makes me so uncomfortable. It's not even funny.
Wow. Oh, that's very cool. I mean, that's like
It's not cool. It's scary. It's horrible. It's to the point where like the whole reason I got back into therapy, like I don't know if a lot of people know this about me. The whole reason I got back into therapy, so I got when Allison died, I got into therapy and I dealt with a lot of those things and I felt good
yeah,
about it. But then when I entered back in was when I moved to Florida. At that point in time in my life, I had moved out of Indiana for the first time ever
wow.
to a place. Yeah, I was 10 minutes from the beach. I'm in a loving and happy relationship with my wife. I have a job that I'm able to that I enjoy doing, but also like I got paid well enough that like I can afford my life and not stress all the time. All the boxes are checked,
Yeah.
and that's all of a sudden when I started having night terrors again in the middle of the
Oh, that
night.
makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
you have like a counseling background. To me, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me?
It shouldn't
But
make sense, but it does make
but
sense. Yeah.
it's like, and so eventually it forced me back into therapy. And then so something that my therapist and I went down the rabbit hole on was essentially she was saying like, look, I think you are just somebody who needs the fight. You
Mm,
need the fight, and for the first time in a long time you don't have a fight in front of you, you don't have chaos in front of you, and so your
yeah.
body's just making it up because it needs
Yeah.
an outlet for it. And so what we came up with was like, for instance, I bartend one night a week. I do that for me. I don't. It's not the money. I do it because it's organized chaos.
That's
I
a
used to do
great,
stand up comedy
great
when I
point.
was like in my early 20s. Back then, I used to like hone a craft and like really work on certain jokes. Now I decide 2 hours before the open mic that I'm going to do it, and I write new material leading up to it, and I do a lot of crowd work because I have no idea where that's going to go because it's a chaotic outlet for me.
That is such a good, I mean, both of those are such good examples when it comes to mental health too, right? I mean, it's, and doing it, I think, in the way that you have designed for yourself, like there's there's a little plan, right? Like you kind of know what bartending is going to look like, or doing stand up is going to look like, but there's so much unknown to it, right? So that chaos piece, it's like organized chaos in a way or something.
Yeah,
Um, it's just so smart because then I don't. You didn't say this, but now how my brain's going, like there probably triggers something in the body too. That's like that adrenaline and that cortisol rush, but
mm-hmm.
you're also safe. Like these are safe conditions, right?
There it
That's
is.
just good balance. Yeah, that's those are really great examples.
No, that's so like because that's what my therapist's fear for me was I was going to end up blowing up my
Yeah,
life because I've done that in my
yeah,
history. Because if I don't have the chaos, I will create it.
yeah.
And it's funny. I was like talking to like my older sister about this, and she was like, "Oh, this makes perfect sense." She's like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, knowing your history, like this actually makes a ton of sense when you really like break it down." Like I will, and I would never want to throw away the life that I have.
Yeah.
So I have to have a better outlet than just being a dumbass.
Mm,
So let's find a healthy, to your point, safe, chaotic stress.
that's you know what I am actually gonna steal that when I'm doing some client work because I think are you familiar with the idea of what they call revenge bedtime?
No, I want to know
Oh,
about
it's
this.
not my concept. You can Google it. Everyone on there here, you can Google it. there's a few really good articles out there on it. Essentially, it's like, so you say your day looks like, okay, your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. You're at the gym by 5:30. You work out until 6:30. You leave for work by 7. You're at work until 6 p.m., right? Then you gotta, I don't know, cook dinner. You gotta do all the things. And so by the time you get into bed, it's like, I don't know, maybe it's 9 o'clock. And the revenge bedtime piece is like, I haven't had time for like the day hasn't really been my
Okay,
day.
I'm familiar with this. I didn't know it was called that. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So then you stay up till like midnight just scrolling or, watching Netflix
Because
and
that's your
eating.
time for you.
Yes, yes, but it's like
Right.
you can't really afford that time because now you've stayed up too late, and so you're going to be exhausted when your alarm goes off the next morning. So I bring that up to say, I talk about it sometimes in therapy, just kind of as a concept. And one of my patients and I, we what does he call it? Like, well, we call it revenge weekending. So I'm thinking about kind of the chaos piece and all that stuff. So he does write all week, right? Like he's really solid on fitness and nutrition and work and all of that stuff. His schedule is crazy. And then Saturday rolls around and he's like, what is it? Balls to the wall or whatever. Like he will drink all the things. He will use all the drugs. I mean, he will party so hard that pendulum swings really hard the other way for him, kind of from that revenge spirit. So anyway, yeah, and that creates the chaos and all that stuff. So I guess in terms of substance use, if you're on here listening and that's something you struggle with, maybe also consider whether you're revenge partying too or whatever.
Yeah, this is my time. Because
Yeah.
I knew it was interesting because I know people that live this life to this day, and there
Mm,
and there could be a healthy version of this.
yeah.
I'm going to speak to
Yes.
not the non-healthy
Yeah.
version of what I'm about to describe, which is the people who don't drink Monday through Thursday, but then Friday comes and they're like, "I'm going in every time,"
Yeah.
and it's like, and in their mind they're like, "I don't have a problem because Monday through Thursday I didn't drink, so if I'm not drinking every day, I don't have a
Right.
problem." But like the revenge element of like, nope, I'm going in because it's now my time to let
Level
loose.
10.
Oh, that well, one is just dangerous
Yes.
in that night, but then
Yes.
also the repercussions of that for most people is not great the next day, and it kind of ruins the rest of your weekend.
Well, and then you're texting. I had a friend who would old friend who would do this, and he would text on Sunday, like, or Monday morning, like, "Oh my God, I'm never doing that again. Like, this was so awful."
The
And like
classic.
Friday would come around, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I just bought." He'd buy Coke and shots and all these things. I'm like, "What are you doing? You're gonna do the same thing again on Monday." So, um, and I'm not suggesting people do drugs and take shots, but like if that's the lifestyle you're wanting from the harm reduction standpoint, cool. Do it smart then. Like you don't you there is a world that exists where you could like, and I don't mean healthy and I don't mean smart goal wise, but like there's a world that exists where you could do it in a way that makes more sense, that you're not exploding your life completely.
No, I mean, like I said, like it's understanding. It's also understanding what your limits are, what your boundaries are,
Totally.
where do you draw a line, and what are you comfortable
Yeah.
with. And so I think that is a huge part of it too. But I really appreciate your approach because like I think it's natural for someone with your background to go, oh no, any version of this is like a foul. And I think not just you, but like I think as you and I have talked about before, like the sober
Yeah.
curious movement,
Yeah.
there's a spectrum on both ends. There is the drinking side of it, which is like the heavy guys who are like, oh, come on, have a drink, come on, like that. That can get a little
Right.
toxic. That can be
Right.
gross. That can be messed up. Then you
Right.
got the people who enjoy it, and you move over to the sober curious, and then you got people on the other side, which basically say, if you
Yeah.
consume any alcohol, you have a problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's also not healthy either
That,
to like just have to like hate on everybody else because they do something that you don't do.
that's yes, and sorry, I'm very excited about what you're saying, but I was talking to my boyfriend about it yesterday actually, and because we were getting ready to go do something, and he was like, you know, it was brunch, and I was like, oh well, maybe I was looking at the menu. I was like, maybe I'll order something, and he had said something about somebody about like, well, just kind of be thoughtful because everybody's in recovery that's going to be coming to this. Which side note, none of them actually were, which was fine. But
That's not funny, but it's
everyone was
kind of
drinking
funny
when we
that
got
like
there.
those are two very different populations.
Yes, yeah, yeah. We were like, oh, I guess this is what this looks like now. But yeah, I know that there are people that like if you are in recovery, you really can't, it's too triggering, it's too much to be around alcohol or drugs or whatever, right? It might not be something that's like safe for you. And also, if that's a place that you're in, I kind of encourage like just explore that a little bit further because uh, because maybe there's more you can do with your recovery, right? Like maybe it doesn't have to be never going to tailgate, right? If that's so triggering, like kind of look to see what else is involved with that. And it may literally just be the smells and the sounds and all of that stuff, right? Like valid, don't do that. But if there's something else going on that's keeping you away, if it's just avoidance, I don't know. There's some things you could do with that. Um,
I mean, think about the people you're around. I mean, like
yeah.
if it's when you're hanging
True.
out with a
Yeah.
particular group of people, it's
Yeah.
like the question is like, what's the old adage? It's like you are the collective average of the top five people you hang out with the most.
Okay, that's
Like there's like
very wise. No, I hadn't heard that
a,
before. But it's true. Like
someone said
you,
it a long
it's a
time ago.
company
I
you
did
keep.
not come up with that, but I
Yeah,
remember hearing that you are personally the collective average of the top five people you spend time with.
that makes sense.
That you spend the most time with, I should say.
Mm.
Because you spend time with people, but like who in your life you spend the most time with
Who's
personally, and
how
you
are
end
they
up
supporting
becoming.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, but if you find that like you're like, oh, when I'm with this person, um, that is triggering for a number of reasons. Maybe you had a past relationship with them. Maybe
Yeah.
you were in a situation with them that like triggers old feelings. And so, to your point, like, yeah, when I'm with those people, there's alcohol involved because there's tailgating. But like to your point, it's also when I tailgate, I'm usually with this crowd who hangs with this
Y-
person, and that makes
Yeah.
me unsafe. And that's
Yes.
worth exploring too, on top of the alcohol consumption.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I just will add to that too that like, yeah, well, no, so you really did touch on it. It is that like that company that you keep, right? If you're not feeling emotionally safe, right, it's going to bring up all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my boyfriend about a year and a half ago, we did dry January because
Okay.
yeah,
It's the trend
it's
thing
usually
to do.
kind of due for it by then. Yeah. And him and I like for our whole relationship, right? We love a good dive bar. We love like we just kind of love the scene.
Yeah.
Um, and so we did dry January and we took it to I think we took it through like April or May that year. And I don't know, something came up and I was like, oh, I want to. There was like a brewery I hadn't been to or something. I was like, I really want to go there and I really want to try whatever they had. So I like broke my thing. He was like, you know what? I think I'm going to keep doing this. I think I'm going to keep doing this. And here we are a year and a half later, and he still hasn't drank. He, and for us, it works. Like we still like to go out. We like to do stuff. And so, you if I guess I'm just trying to say there is a world that exists where you don't have to be like all or nothing, right? Like him and I would go out nowadays. Like I mean, any bar in town has a non-alcoholic beer, and so there's still options. You don't have to totally abandon your life if you don't want to. Even from a sober curious standpoint, like there's still ways to like hang out and do stuff.
Absolutely. No, I mean, but you hit the nail on the head too. Is like the not specific to alcohol, but there something that like is an internal battle that I fight with people all the time on
Mm,
is I don't know if it's an American thing or what, but like we have this all or nothing culture
yes.
where it's like people are just like take alcohol out of the equation. If you're a dog person, you're like, I love dogs, 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 and you're like, fuck cats. It's like,
Yeah.
why can't you
Yeah.
like both? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to just be a cat person or just be. We have at my house we have two cats, but I love dogs. Both
What?
can exist. It's okay. You don't have to like. And it's the same version. Like just because you like alcohol doesn't mean you can't take a pause from it, and vice versa. If you're
Yeah.
someone who is in recovery and like and is staying out of it, you can still be at a bar and enjoy time with people and drink seltzer waters. Like Tom Holland,
Don't.
the actor, was talking about that. He's like, I love going out with my friends and making sure they get home okay.
Yeah. Oh no, it's so like, and there's purpose, right? There's intention, there's joy. Like it just looks, you're still doing all the same things. You're just like maybe not feeling like shit the next day and also feeling like you kind of you still have fun and you get to do something. And honestly, I'm like, this is kind of working out for me that he's not drinking because
You have a DD
then
all the time.
always have a DJ and I probably have like saved a bunch of money because well, I always like how it works for us. I always will prioritize kind of where he is with things because if I'm out and about, your girl's gonna stay out. She's gonna keep doing the things. I'm like, how are you feeling? Are you ready to go home? And so it's a good gauge because not drinking. So if he's ready to go home, usually that's fine. That's good timing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. My wife, she does enjoy it, not as much as I do on the alcohol side, but
Mm,
I am definitely more the social person, let's put it that way.
yeah.
And so she's a good like benchmark for me of like
Mm,
we should probably go home.
yeah.
You're probably right. You're
Yeah.
probably right. Um, and so it has helped me a bit, having that yin and yang of that
Yeah.
counterbalance to kind of say, because I can keep going with this all
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
but there's a line there that eventually you cross, and you're like, all right, I should have gone home 3 hours ago.
I, oops. I just want to add real quick to that, like all or nothing piece. I think that's, I don't know if you are in younger generations now, like if that still screams so loudly, but for my age group and older, it's that all or nothing was so strong for so many reasons. And I think about it, I mean, I talk to patients a lot about it in terms of like exercise and nutrition because for always it's like either you do the 60-minute workout class and you sweat your ass up and or or going for a walk, like that doesn't count. Go for a walk, that doesn't count. So back in like in the stay home days of 2020, there's a lady, her name's Betty Rocker. I don't know her, but her stuff is so nice. But she was doing these like 10 or 15-minute workouts and it changed my life. I was like, wait a second, you can do that and it still counts and it feels good. And like, because doing something is always better than doing nothing. So anyway, just my 2 cents on the black and
No,
white there.
that's such a good point because, like, specifically on working out, like that was,
Hmm.
oh man, that hit home so hard because for a long time, like I grew up playing sports and um, practices were always very intense. Everything was so intense, and so in my mind, it was like, well, if I don't have a crazy hard workout, then like I might as well
Yep.
not work out.
Yeah.
And that goes back to like this go around of like trying to be in a better like health shape. It's like if I can just do something
Yeah.
every day. Maybe that's
Yeah.
15 minutes, maybe it's an hour, whatever the case may be, whatever I have availability, it's still better than not doing it.
You know
And
why? Oh, sorry.
no,
I didn't
that
mean
just,
to.
I mean, that's it really. It's just like getting myself out of that mindset of being like, well, I don't have a whole hour at the gym today, so I might as well forget the gym. It's like,
Yeah,
even if I
exact.
do 20 minutes at the gym, it's still better than not doing 20 minutes at the
Exactly.
gym.
Got it. Yeah. Even if you do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it feels better because you are still being like you still get a checkpoint towards consistency. Like
Mm-hmm.
on those kind of days, I will be like, I have to. I mean, I have to really like check in here, but I'll be like, all right, this is just a consistency workout or whatever. So go for a walk around the block. Like I'm just doing this to be consistent, not for like health and weight loss and all of that stuff, right? And then two, even if you do just such a short amount, like that compared to doing nothing, where then you feel like a bum and you feel guilty and all of that like beat up yourself sort of thing. Like you don't get that even if you just did a little bit.
No,
You know?
it's, yeah, I mean, you don't have to beat yourself up over. I mean, but and it also speaks to you said the word consistency, which I think is a huge part of this equation too,
Yeah.
because like building healthy habits is ultimately the goal. If we're going to assign like a smart, like attainable goal, to me, it's like building healthy habits.
Yeah.
I want to make it consistent that I do something physical every day. I got to work my way up to it, and then I do that, and then, but like maintaining that consistency is almost more important to me than the actual work itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
And so, because especially like in my life, like I travel for work a decent amount, and like when you travel, like it throws off your day, it throws off your couple
totally.
days, and
Yeah.
so it's so easy to get yourself out of that and be like, all right, well, I'm not going to work out because I'm traveling and I'm busy, and where you got 10 minutes, do something for 10, do as many push-ups as you can do, That's
Yes, there's enough
still better
videos that
than
exist
not doing
online.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And I think maybe I'll try to tie it into alcohol, I guess. Like if all the messages we're talking about today, right, is being more intentional with your time and your efforts and your experience. And so maybe it's like just because it's Friday happy hour time, check in. Like do you need to do you want to be drinking, right? Do you I guess nobody ever needs to be drinking, I guess, but like do you want to be doing this or is it more out of the habit piece? Because if you're trying to cut back, not even trying to like do sober curious, if you just want to cut back, I always recommend, which it's not, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but I always recommend like you can go online and you can print out a free like calendar for the month, like free template, and just track your goals, like track your progress on the days that you, if it's not drinking, on the days that you don't drink, color color it in blue, right? And the days that you do have a drink, color it in red, because then at the end of the week or at the end of the month, you have that to look back at and see how consistent you were. Because if you know whether it's if you take a few days off of exercising or you eat like shit for the weekend, always your brain's going to be like, oh, you're a horrible person and you never do well, right? Like you ruined
You don't
everything.
get
But if you
just
look
get a
back,
collective average.
yeah, yeah, looking back and having that visual of like to check your brain, right? Like look at the consistency, then you're like, well, okay, actually I did pretty good this month. You know, usually that is the case. So I try to tie it back into alcohol there, but there you go.
No,
So
but it's I mean it applies to all of it.
it
I mean
does.
whether it's
Yeah.
alcohol or weight loss or just checking on your mental health and
Yeah.
doing those things. Like I think it's a really important mental health lesson, which is like there's a very popular like framework of like thinking, which is I call it the YOLO philosophy, which is like, well,
Oh,
you only live
yeah.
once, you only live
Yeah.
once, and so because of that, like we need to go all in all the time and like have fun and like you might die tomorrow. You are
Yeah.
absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. You might die tomorrow, but odds are you're not.
Yeah.
Odds are
Yeah.
high. You're gonna, especially if you live in like a well established country, odds are you're going to live a pretty long
Yeah.
life. You could be wrong. There is something to be said
Yes.
for if you only plan for the future and you only think about the distance, you're missing out on some potential things right now. I totally hear that and understand that. You should
Right.
enjoy your life right now. But again, statistically speaking, you will probably make it a long time. And if you are, stop thinking in terms of next week or tomorrow or anything. You have to have some of your life being planned. Again, it goes back to the finances thing.
Yep.
Like, yes, enjoy your life. If that little purchase over there gives you joy, do it. But again, odds are you're going to live a long time. It might be helpful along the way to like plan for your version of retirement, whatever that looks like for you.
You know, I don't know if you ever like did a Whole 30 or if you ever read about Whole 30, but like I think one of the, which is a whole other conversation I could have about it, but one takeaway from my experience with that is they, I think in the, this is like an old version of the book, but I think they talked about like kind of in an office setting, right? How, God, especially, I'll say, especially at the hospital where I was working this summer, I could go in that break room any day of the week and there's donuts and there's cookies. There's like all of the things, right? And I am tired. I'm stressed. The NICU is like basically on fire. And so that was really appealing. But one, when I can remember to do it, one of the checkpoints that the Whole 30 had taught me was do like, do you really want this, right? Is this donut something like, are you a donut person or are you just eating it because it's there? And if you really want a donut, you have an income that you could like, you could go buy a dollar donut at the grocery store after work if you really want that, right? So all of it, and just how that impacts mental health, because now you're not acting impulsively. Now you're not being reactive. You're slowing down. You're giving yourself pause. You're, you know, bumping up that empowerment piece, being intentional, being deliberate, and like, if I want that fucking donut, I'm going to eat that donut and I'm going to go back on the floor. But also, I could just like let it marinate a bit and see how I feel.
Yeah, I oh man, I could go down tons of rabbit holes on that topic by itself, and
I
I
know.
want to be conscious of your time. I know we normally plan for like an hour for these, but like if you want to keep going, I'm happy to keep going. I have nothing.
You know, actually, as you just said that, my alarm literally just went off. I actually have to pack up and get out of this Airbnb today.
Oh
So
yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, no,
it's
so do your
wild time.
thing.
Today's my checkout day. Um, but yeah, no, I could talk to you for so long. I really feel like we've known each other forever. Like you've been so lovely and easy to chat with, and appreciate the invite on here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I appreciate you coming on and any willingness, and
Was
I'm
that
sure I'll
fun?
have you back because
Oh, I hope
it's
so.
so cool. Like for me, like just taking a quick minute to like show appreciation for you. And when I started in this journey of the outside of this, like I had no idea what was going to come of making video content, blogging before
Yeah.
that, and writing a book and doing all these things. Like I had no idea what the world was going to look like for me.
Yeah.
And just kind of like through happenstance, just finding people like you, or I have some other friends who will be on this series.
Yeah.
Just meeting those connections that like I would have had never run across you had I not gone down this
I,
path. So one
man,
takeaway for everybody: take a chance, try something, put
I
yourself out there. You'd be surprised what you can run into.
absolutely, yeah, probably more times than not is somebody going to be receptive to it because it's, it is a risk, but probably it's going to go okay. And if it's not, like, okay, they're just not your person. But no, I have a handful of people I've been like messaging with, texting with that I met on here over the last year and a half, and it's just been so it's just such a nice space. It can be such a nice space, I should say.
There's
So
definitely a bad
you
version of it too. We can talk
know,
about that on our next session about the good and bads of social
you
media for
know.
sure.
Well, I'll meet you down
But
there sometime. We'll go get a beer.
no, absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome
Yeah.
here anytime. Yeah, come to Tampa, especially as you're in your nomad life.
Yeah, we'll see for how much longer. I'll keep you posted. If anyone needs a therapist out there, let me know. We
Yes,
could
I
be
was
on
gonna
the
say
road
shameless
together.
plug
So,
now. Go for
oh,
it,
oh,
and
okay.
then we can
So
go.
yeah, if you do, if you are interested, I work for I call it like a mom and pop company in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, because it's a husband and wife run, and they're just so lovely. When you call there, you either get Joseph, you get Kim, or you get Ashley. So it's, you get to know everybody real quick. But if you are interested in therapy, you can email me or you can email the office. Maybe I'll give you that one. It's info at the number two, the letter S, like Sam, enterprises, enterprises.com. Or you can message me at Back to Basics Therapy on here. Um, I have I always leave space for, like, there's a story out there I haven't heard, but I've heard a lot. I've seen a lot. I've worked in a bunch of different venues, and so while we wouldn't be doing group therapy, I like to pull from the collective experiences to try to help guide patients and provide support. So, thank you so much for having me.
No, I'm happy to have you. And for anybody who's looking, even if you're not necessarily ready for therapy yet, following Rachel's content on Back to Basics Therapy is just a really cool place
Go on.
to explore and think about things a bit differently and starting from square one, starting truly back to basics, not to you
It's
know overuse the phrase, but it's true.
No, it is true, and I probably should make more like actual basics content. But even I was talking to my mom about it the other day, and she was like, "Oh, how you must you must work so hard on your videos," which I do kind of work hard on them. I mean, it's time consuming, but it's I don't have to work as hard as it maybe seems because every video I do is a product of what I'm seeing show up for patients in therapy that week. So and none of them know each other, but these themes kind of tend to come up. And so if they're struggling with it, I know somebody on here is struggling with it. So yeah, if there's also anything, if you're watching and there's something you want me to talk about on a reel or something, I'm really glad to address it too. So yeah, yeah, we'll keep the
Look,
conversation going.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel. Have
Thank
fun
you
with you getting
too.
out of your Airbnb.
Yeah, next chapter. See you guys soon. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.